Hello, everyone, and welcome to the special edition of Quantum Miracles Mastery Heal. How to create miracles today so you can heal anything. I am your host, Melissa Binkley, and I'm a spiritual psychologist and healer, and I'm the founder of the Intuitive Intelligence Academy. I love debunking belief systems that have us all trapped and exploring paradigms that disrupt. I believe in magic and miracles and believe together we can create a conscious revolution. I'm so excited for today's episode of Quantum Miracles Mastery because I have Val Silidker, and we're going to be talking about deepening our evolutionary shift. Val is the co-founder and director of Psychospiritual Institute. She's a board certified coach and coach trainer and has been a transformation catalyst for over 20 years, specializing in transpersonal psychology, ecotherapy, leadership skills, and holistic business. Val is also a deep ecologist, an international speaker, and the author of Call of the Ecological Self. She's been featured multiple times on Hay House Radio, NBC, USA Today, as well as numerous publications. She works with emerging leaders who feel the shift in our world and want to be a catalyst for change, and who are stepping into this evolutionary shift. Welcome, Val.
Oh, wow. Yeah, Melissa, it's so good to be with you and in this conversation as always.
It's so good to have you back again, and I am really excited to dive into this evolutionary shift. But before we do that, can you explain to everybody what is a deep ecologist?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I guess it's not necessarily a household name, huh?
Yeah.
So deep ecology is a both an ecological and spiritual and philosophical approach to understanding who we are as humans and our relationship to the natural world, to the earth, looking at living systems, looking at the web of life, and asking the deeper questions about how we need to be showing up in a way that honors all life. So humans are not just sitting on the top of the planet with a crown and scepter, but we're like interconnected, interdependent, part of the web. And so that affects the choices we make. It affects the way we live. And so deep ecology is this greater invitation into being more fully human.
Ooh, I love that. And I love that we are really in this space of understanding that we have to not see ourselves as separate because with everything that's going on in the world, with like even like gas prices and the pandemic, and then like what's happening with nature, like all of this is an interconnected organism. We all have to work together, and we're all connected in a field that one choice or one thing that we do. But we've lived in a society where we were taught for so long that I'm separate. We live in houses with backyards instead of front yard, right? Like people play in the backyards now, and used to be that we're in the front yard. You used to have community. People used to live together in harmony and do community, and now it seems like we've had created this deep separation that needs to come back together and pull us together. So you talk about this evolutionary shift. What is it? What is an evolutionary shift, and what are we stepping into right now in this world?
Yeah, I mean, and this is like a huge question, right? It could be a whole conference in and of itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, evolution is something that's always happening. It is always a movement, like for 13.7 billion years, as far as we understand it through science. Life has been unfolding and learning and deepening on both a physical level and on a level of consciousness. Like we see now, as we as humans, we're self-reflexive beings, and we're always curiously learning about who we are and what this world's all about. Through science and physics and all the wonderful ways that we explore ourselves. So evolution is always something that's happening under the surface. I think, when we talk about contributing and participating in a greater way to deepening the evolutionary shift, it means becoming more conscious of the mechanics of evolution. So understanding how evolution is working both within ourselves as individuals and also on a collective level. And by understanding that and becoming more self-aware, and when I say self-aware, I don't just mean like my individual self. I
Mm.
mean the both and of being this self and also the larger ecological self, the larger part of the larger universal unfolding. When we become more aware of who we are, we can consciously begin to contribute and even in a sense direct, like as the universe reflecting on itself, right? Like as Val as universe, as Melissa as universe, as these holographic pieces of the whole, we get to consciously step in and participate in more aware ways that lead us towards more connection and compassion, and a future that we can envision together that feels more whole.
Mm.
That's it, kind of like the summary of it, and then we'll break into those
Yeah.
pieces,
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. And I love that you said it, bringing us to a place where it feels more whole again instead of that separation, right? That wholeness. So we have this world. We all can see what's happening in the world right now. And I've been doing this conference now for 3 years, and the first time that came around was right during the beginning of this. So how can we see what's going on in the world? We've got war. We've got the pandemic. We've got all these right now as a catalyst for this evolutionary change and for deeper growth.
Yeah. I think, just even speaking to everything that's happening in our world right now, the first thing that I'm feeling called to say is just to take a moment to honor the very human experience that we are all having in our different ways. There's a lot of pain right now, a lot of confusion, a lot of fear, a lot of polarization. People have lost loved ones. People are being, their homes are being flooded and displaced. There's so much that's happening right now. And just everybody, who's listening in right now and tuning in, before we just kind of jump into like, oh, all of this is great, fuel for growth, is to just, in order for us to move forward, we have to honor where we are.
Mm, mm,
And so being with what's here, I think is that first step. And then it's through turning toward this experience that we begin to receive the information that we need to learn, and to recognize like all the things that we've been through as humans through all time, right? There are lessons that have come from that on collective levels, maybe in our family, personally in our own personal lives. So we hold the past within us. At the same time, we hold future possibilities inside of us. So we live in a space of deep time where everything is right here, the lessons, the possibilities. And I believe that what we are seeing happening around the world are symptoms to a greater crisis, which is this crisis of perception.
mm,
And it's this perception of how, this dominant paradigm that sees, that we were just speaking to, that sees our entire world as a resource for human use with little to no concern about other humans or non-human animals or the integrity of the earth as a whole. And what we see is, humans have so much power over, right? We have a power over system, and we have power over every living being because we affect the chemical composition of the atmosphere and many other things, but we affect every living being on this planet. And when we couple that with an overall ignorance of our profound interconnection and interdependence with life, when we continue to make excuses for not changing our own lifestyle or speaking out or taking responsibility. And I also think when we continue to be hypnotized by this consumer society that puts materialism and
mm.
material things before life, then we continue to lead our world towards this kind of collapse. But we can make a new choice. We can make a different choice when we have that information. So the sooner that each of us begins to recognize the earth and all living beings as sacred, the sooner that we awaken to this interconnection with life and ask, how can we be part of the solution? How can we serve in the healing of our world, even in a small way? Like nothing is too small, to make a difference. And the sooner we do that, the sooner we collectively contribute to a paradigm shift that our world so desperately needs. And I'll add this too, in the sense of deep time, is that we are ancestors. We are all ancestors to the future ones who have yet to be born. And
Oh,
so I guess we'll let that sink in for a second. We are the ancestors to the future ones who have yet to be born. So what does that mean to live like an ancestor?
mm,
And when we think about them looking back at this time to how we showed up and how we worked together for a more loving world, what does that mean for us in the way that we show up in a way that honors both us and those living in this time, and also our children and our great grandchildren and the human and non-human animals to come, right? And we can ask ourselves, how does my way of being and my choices, how can the way that I show up being offering that my life is not just for me?
mm. Yeah.
We have to live as an ancestor on this planet because we are in such a time of, such an invitation right now in our time to ask how we utilize this information, how we learn about who we really are, what we value, and who we choose to become as we move forward. So the challenges that we're experiencing right now get to be compost for our deepening and our growth. What is it that we're learning? Because evolution happens under the greatest amount of pressure.
Yes. Yeah, it
And
does.
here we are. So what wants to arise from this experience to lead us forward?
Mm, that's so beautiful. And so for people out there that are like, okay, I get what you're saying and I hear all this, but I don't know where to start. I don't know what's the first thing. Like, what's something practical? What's something that, besides just thinking about living like an ancestor or doing these things, which I think sometimes take some deeper growth into, like somebody might be watching this and be like, I'm not there yet. Like, what can I do to start today?
Yeah. I think that, so yes, I'm talking about a big concept of like recognizing who we are on a much deeper level, as part of a living system, as part of, alive on a living planet. And so what that means is, it begins here. It begins with the first step. It begins turning here within. So how do we become more present to what we're experiencing and what we're holding and not turn away? And I think that's the first step. The first step is this turning toward our current human experience. And maybe it's the overwhelm that we're having, within us, or maybe it's like I'm showing up more edgy lately, so how do I turn towards myself and begin to experience and feel the emotions that I'm feeling, and really turn towards my sadness or my grief or my pain, personal pain or collective pain for our world, and start to be with that in a more intimate way. And if I can hold that myself, if I have those tools, wonderful. Or get those tools that you need, or get support if you need support from a therapist or a counselor or a coach that could be there with you. And I think that by being able to be more present to what's happening for each of us on a personal level, we begin to kind of unblock the feedback loops. In other words, the information that comes from being present to ourselves. And we get to deepen and become more authentic, more whole within ourselves, more able to show up day to day, moment to moment, with my children, with my partner, with my friends, in society, at my business. And it's those little changes that create a ripple effect into the world. So it starts here with us.
I love that. And then as we start to do that inner focus and that work and be more present, we start to realize that we are not just one single separate entity, but that we are part of a huge living system, of a part of something else, and we can start to grow into that. So can you just say more about Earth as a living system and stepping into understanding how we are a part of this?
Yeah, yes. And so I think the way to do that, first, I'll give you like a little mini ecology lesson, to understand like what is a living system and how do we see that. And then I want to bridge that gap into consciousness and what that actually means for our evolutionary growth. So in 1972, I believe, 1972, a man named James Lovelock and a woman named Lynn Margolis came up with something called the Gaia theory. And the Gaia theory speaks to Earth as a living system, not self-reflective in the same way that we are, at least as far as we know, but everything on Earth, from humans to non-human animals, to algae, to mycorrhizae, to trees, to rocks, to birds, everything on this planet works together to maintain balance. This is a living system. So Earth is alive and we're part of that aliveness. And what we do affects everything else. So a living system is always striving to maintain a kind of homeostasis or balance, or a better way to say it might be the optimum conditions for life to exist and thrive. So for example, if we look at our human body is a living system. And the optimum condition for this body to survive is around 98.6 degrees temperature wise, right? So what happens if I get sick, if I get a virus or I get cold and I get sick, the temperature of my body starts to rise because the heat begins to try to kill off the virus, right? So my body is naturally trying to kill off the virus and then come back to a homeostasis. Now, if all of a sudden my temperature goes from 101 to 105, 106, now I'm in danger of this system dying or collapsing. So I need to do something like sit in an ice cold bath or take a Tylenol or do something that's going to help even support from the outside to bring that temperature back down to create those optimum conditions for life. So That's living system optimum conditions. So the earth is the same way. If we take a step back, and you know that beautiful image of the earth from outer space,
Yeah.
right? So just think about that for a second and imagine that whole image of the earth as one alive living system. You see all the different systems on the earth acting the same way as our bodies. So for example, you know, let's say that um, okay, so let's look at the seawater. So when there's too much salinity, like over 5% in the ocean, some of the ocean life will begin to die. But then there are species, plant species that absorb salinity. So more of them will start to grow and grow and grow and absorb more salinity to keep the optimum conditions in the ocean for life to exist. And we also see this in predator-prey relationships, right? Like if we have a bunch of bunnies and then we have some coyotes that are coming in and they start eating up the bunnies and feasting on the bunnies. Well, after a while, the bunny population is going to start to go down. The coyote population is going to go up, but then there won't be enough bunnies to feed them. So the older, the sick, right, not as strong will start to die off because they won't have enough food. And the coyote population will come back down. Then maybe the bunny population will rise and they'll start to rise. So there's always this sense of check balances happening on the planet. So that's ecology 101, living systems. So systems as a whole. In our human bodies also, we can see this on a micro level. Like for instance, we have cells, right? Like we are, if we look at the earth, we're like cells in the body of the earth.
Mm-hmm.
We also say that. So we're part of that whole living system. And we recognize that. We also realize that wholeness is not just limited to us. Okay. I wanted to bring us into that living system too. So what we do affects the whole. So on a cellular level, like we have these cells, we have billions of cells in our body, and those cells have been around for forever, like the most intelligent things, right? They're like DNA, mitochondria, they're complete living whole, right? Living and whole. And then those cells start to come together to form an organ. Now we have another living system in the body that's made up of a whole bunch of whole systems. So all these little tiny holes now form a larger whole, which is an organ. And then all of those organs come together and all the systems of the body to form a whole body. Are you with me? So we have cells, we have organs, then we have a whole body. And now each time we move to another level of wholeness, what happens is it includes, like all the cells are included, and then it transcends to create something larger. So all the cells in our body and the systems of the body come together to form you.
And I love that you're specifically saying every piece is already whole, right?
Yeah.
Every piece
Yeah.
is already whole, and then it's creating something that is whole also in itself. And so it's combining wholeness with wholeness with wholeness. I love this. Keep going.
Yes. Yes.
wanted
And
to
then
really
here's
point
the
that
magic.
out.
Here's the magic. So Melissa, let's imagine that we have all the parts of your body. Like I'm talking like every single part of your body. We have a bunch of buckets and boxes, and we've got like your cells and your blood and your heart and your hair, and all the different parts of you are right there. Like not a single thing is missing. Is it you?
Yeah.
Is it you? Like what's missing? So there's something that happens when all of those pieces come together that transcends. It includes all those pieces, all the parts of you. But there's something that happens when all those pieces come together to form a larger whole that becomes larger than the individual pieces. This is also known as synergy. If something happens that is bigger than the parts, right? So what is that magic? What happens? So then if we as a human body come together with other humans, now let's talk about consciousness in the same way. And we begin to come together and expand our sense of self and our awareness. And now all of the humans come together with the entirety of the earth. We begin to include each of us as individuals and transcend into something much, much larger. So the larger whole is not just on a physical level. There's a wholeness of consciousness that's happening as we become more and more aware of who we are as the individual parts and also as this interconnected whole being of the earth, like an ecological self that we're all interwoven into. So when that happens, we get to come together and create a space for that life force and that energy and that magic to transcend into something even larger that becomes part of this evolutionary movement that we're all connected to. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
by understanding Earth as a whole living system and applying that theory and that understanding to who we are collectively, energetically, consciously, we get to now take part and give our information becomes part of the information of the whole that moves us forward evolutionarily, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, it makes lots of sense, and it's really powerful, because as we're sitting in this space of I'm already whole, and I'm sharing in this wholeness. When we start to allow ourselves to be a part of that, not just in theory but in reality, and doing that, and honing into taking care of our mother Gaia, right? The Gaia theory, taking care of that system. Uh, I Bruce Lipton talks about we're within like a few generations of mass extinction, right? And one of the things that he said, but I am one of those, coming from that scientist point of view, coming from the other side of saying, I think we're also within a couple of generations of an absolute transformation to a more utopian, healing, beautiful society, and we have the ability to do both, but we have to allow ourselves to see as part of this wholeness, and become a part of this evolutionary shift to make this experience happen.
Absolutely. And to be aware that when we begin to come together in this way, emergent properties, because living systems, then when you come together, something emerges from the greater whole. It always does. Emergence is one of the properties of living systems. So what kind of magic and life force can happen when we begin to come together? There something is possible in that creative field that can begin to lead us forward as we listen more deeply to what life is asking of us. And we really begin to pull that in. There's a wonderful quote that I love from a man named Thomas Yeomans. And he says, the stunning paradox of human spiritual maturity is that as we become one with all creation, we also at the same time become completely and uniquely ourselves.
Mm,
So the more that
wow.
we connect with the whole, the more we recognize how significant and important we are as individuals in this movement,
Yeah.
because a living system thrives on information. And when that information is blocked because we don't want to feel our feelings, because we are taught to be happy all the time and not be authentic with whatever we're experiencing, when we're not able to contribute information into that system, or when we see this massive disinformation around the world right now, where like the system doesn't know what's true anymore, right? It doesn't allow the whole living system to learn and deepen and grow in the direction it needs to expand and up level.
Mhm.
So coming back to what we do as individuals, when we begin to unblock our own feedback loops and come deeper into a connection with who we are and what we feel, and we show it more authentically, we provide information into that whole system that allows the whole system to self-organize
Mm.
and deepen and grow toward that more, I want to say utopian, because that's idealizing in a way, but a more realistic, compassionate future, rather than this post-apocalyptic, great unraveling of all the systems that we're seeing right now, which some of those
Yeah.
systems need to unravel, by the way. But like what comes from that is the emergence. What comes from that is those of us doing this work and coming together and having these conversations that allows new emergent properties to arise.
Yeah, beautiful. So what I'm curious about is, do you have a process or a meditation or something that allows us to feel kind of like this connection, or that inner space, or something that you could share maybe with our audience today, and walk us through a little bit so that we can feel that this
Mm.
deepening of this connection?
Yeah. Oh, I would love to. Yeah. Um, I have a meditation that I'll share, and I'll just kind of give the context briefly, which was this meditation I wrote. It came from an experience that I had in Costa Rica, where I was hiking in the rainforest and came upon this beautiful tree, and just took a moment to presence myself and recognize this like deep exchange of life that was happening in that moment and in all moments with
Mm.
our the greater whole. So this is a meditation that I call breathing the tree.
Oh, I love it. Okay.
So I'll invite you and everybody tuning in to just, close your eyes or soften your gaze and deep, slow breath. Slowly inhaling, slowly exhaling, and taking a moment to be in that natural rhythm of your inhalations and your exhalations, allowing that breath to Center you, bring you more into presence with this moment. And then bring your awareness gently within. And imagine that you're stepping into a lush forest. Notice the smell of the damp soil and the other earthy scents that fill the air. See the sunlight dancing on the leaves, the depths of colors. Listen to the sounds of birds singing, the wind whispering through the trees. As you step deeper into this forest, notice the way the soft earth embraces your step, the sensation of the ground beneath your feet, calling you deeper. Allow yourself to wander, taking in the world around you. Now you find yourself entering into a deeper part of the forest. It feels warm and safe and welcoming. And as you do, you come to a large old growth tree. Take in the presence of this ancient one, several hundred years old. You can't see the top of this tree as it extends into the sky because it's so incredibly tall. And you begin to expand your arms, and the base of the trunk is far wider than your reach. Step forward and gently place your hands upon the rough textured bark. The deep grooves caress your hands, and you tune into the energy of life flowing through this living being. Become aware now of your breath, inhaling and exhaling. You begin to feel as if you are being breathed. As you exhale, you're aware that this tree is breathing in your carbon dioxide. You are breathing into this tree. And as you inhale, this tree is breathing into you. You are breathing in the oxygen of this tree's breath. Stay present to this exchange of life. Breathing into this tree and being breathed into. This tree's breath filling your lungs. Inhale and exhale together. Interdependent dance of life. You exist as one being, mutually dependent upon the other for your life. A few minutes to just breathe together, a few moments here, just breathing in, staying with your breath, staying in this connection that's always here. And now, as you stay with the awareness of this breath, gently bow to the sacred one to honor this exchange and give thanks to this tree for your life. And then slowly begin to make your way out of the forest along the same path that you came in, feeling deeply connected and aware of your interconnectedness and interdependence with life. What do you notice within you now as you slowly make your way back? And as you finally arrive at the entrance to the forest from which you began your journey, gently begin to come back to your body. Staying with that connection. And when you're ready, go ahead and open your eyes.
So beautiful. Wow. It just that just being able to feel that connection and the idea of breathing into the tree. That was really incredible. Yeah. Oh, it's hard to come back from that. Okay.
And in ways like even, no matter what we're doing, whether we're at the mountaintop or washing the dishes at the sink or in like a dark night of the soul, like
Yeah.
that connection is always here. And we might feel alone at moments in our lives, but to know that we are never truly alone, that we're always part of this dance of life, this vastness, this deep invitation calling us forward to
Hmm.
participate in greater and greater ways in the healing of our world.
Beautiful. Okay, so Val, I'm all high over here. Val, you have a wonderful gift for everyone. It's this really unique exercise that starts to activate your inner vision. Everybody, if you go to the link below, she's going to tell you all about it. But you go to the link below, and you're going to be able to grab this gift from Val. Val, can you share with everybody what they're going to get when they sign up below?
Yeah. So this is an exercise called the ideal model exercise. And, as we're talking about turning toward how we're showing up in the world and understanding who we are more authentically as a starting point, you know, this is a great exercise that invites you to start to look at what we call false models, which are ways that we tend to show up in the world that are driven by sometimes meeting other people's expectations or pressures from society or ways that we may undervalue ourselves or even secret daydream models that we can't possibly ever attain that are not realistic to who we truly are. So it takes you through taking a deeper look at the false models so that you can then create an authentic, ideal, and realistic model for who you are and who you're becoming in the world. This can be applied to yourself in a larger way into how am I living in life? Or it could be applied to like, how am I showing up as a mother? What's my ideal way to be in a relationship and navigate difficult conversations or arguments in front of my child? How would I come back to that in the most ideal way? So it's a realistic way of being very authentic in the world. And it's a powerful exercise.
Oh, I'm super excited. I'm going to go try that out. I did doing this work for a long time, but you can always reevaluate, relook, and see how my ideal model has even maybe changed over time and what I'm looking for. So go to the link below, grab your ideal model exercise, and connect with Val at the Psychospiritual Institute because she's doing so many amazing things. They have coaching or programs and all sorts of different things. You can get certifications. She's really doing their organization is really doing some amazing things in the world, and she's by far one of my favorite people. So go ahead and check that out. All right, Val, you ready for the lightning round?
All right.
All right, here we go. A miracle is
Miracle is life. Life.
your definition of spirituality.
Oh, well, when I think of spirituality, I think of spiritual maturity, and of being so fully embodied in everything within me and recognizing that everything is is part of my growth. So everywhere we are is part of our path, and turning towards the human experience for me is a deep spiritual path. So
Mhm.
living my full experience.
Yeah, beautiful. People get sick because.
I think in a lot of ways because we forget who we are, and what it means to honor this body, honor our hearts, our minds, and show up fully present.
Awesome. One ritual, practice, or thing you cannot live without. Your 5-minute solution.
Oh my goodness. I work so much and life can be so like just going so fast. And I think we can all experience that. So something that serves me so well, I sit right in front of this beautiful window to my backyard, which is very green and lush. And whenever I'm feeling like, oh my, I just don't have a second to spare, I will shut everything down, like the opposite of what I'm actually feeling. Step outside, bare feet, sit in this, I have a chair and I just sit there or I just allow my feet in the earth, feel the sun on my face and take at least 5 to 10 minutes, just bring in that sunshine and take a moment to actually stop when I feel like I can't. And it refuels me for
Mm,
everything else that I need to do. And so that's something that I do almost daily.
awesome. I love it. You're on your deathbed. You have one truth that you can leave for all your friends, family, and humanity to know. What would you say?
The greatest gift in life is love. and that space of love within us for ourselves and for each other and for our world.
Yeah, beautiful. And you've done so many amazing things so far in this world, but what's one thing that's up for you next? Like something that you want to do, that you have to do, that you're excited about?
Yeah. I'm actually in the midst of writing a book right now, uh, Heal Our World. And it's a lot of what we talked about today and much, much more. It's like personal tools for our own deep inner growth, healing our inner world, and how important that is actually for us to show up in a larger way to heal our world collectively. So it's looking at both the inner and the outer world, like the inner evolution for our outer revolution, energy. So that's currently what I'm working on.
When do you have a release date yet?
It's going to be this year, so
Okay.
2022. So
So
yeah,
watch out for that. I'm sure that I'll be sending out an email to all of you to share about this book because we love to do those types of things. So pay attention and look for Val's new book that's going to come out. Thank you, Val, today for all your magic and miracles. It's always such a pleasure. And I'll see all of you on another episode of Quantum Miracles Mastery. Bye.